You know, how many times do we hear, I'm only doing my job? You know, some official person with like some kind of authority comes up and says, you know, I'm only doing my job. You know, like as if your wage packet actually gives you authority over me, you know. Like a hitman comes and says, oh, I've been paid $1 million to kill you. Oh, that's okay. Then as long as you've been paid, then you've got, you know, it doesn't work like that, does it? Listen to how it sounds when that's your final argument is, I'm only doing my job. You know, you're just admitting incompetence, and I want to talk to your boss because it's about reason and not who's paying who. Authority isn't a wage packet. I mean, it might be for you. You know, it might be for you if you're in a position where you need to keep your job and follow your orders. But if you're carrying out an illegal order and also causing harassment or injury to a human being because you're getting paid, how does that sound? You don't get authority over me or anybody just because of your wage packet. In fact, that diminishes your civil liberties because you're working for another man, another boss, another woman, another business entity. But, you know, you can't serve two masters. So you can't serve your boss and your own interests. It won't work anymore. You're only doing your job. And I'll respect that. I'll respect your job. I'll try and make your job as easy as possible. But don't think that your wage packet or your uniform or your badge or your job position gives you any special power as a human being. And especially not over other fellow human beings. Because in a legal state, as we live in, our government is a Rechtsstaat structure, or a rule of law. These words are very ambiguous. The legal and rules are kind of not the same, but we live in a legal state. That legal state was developed and put in position to protect the citizens from the misuse of power from government and to limit civil servants in their duties. Because obviously if everybody just could get into government and then misuse that power, then, you know. So that's a legal state. We don't live in an authoritarian state. If we did, then it'd be different, but we live in a legal state where law and the rule of law plays a force. And that means that the dignity and the rights of man are inviolable. You cannot, like, breach a man's rights. No man can breach another man's rights. You know, so if the state is harming a citizen's right, then the state has to back down. You see, if one man breaches another man's rights, then he's in breach of rights. But the idea of positive law, like rules of society, being enforceable because because you're getting paid, or because somebody else is a taxpayer, which isn't really, you're not a taxpayer. It's been extracted. Most people wouldn't pay tax voluntarily, I'm sure, especially not when it's funding the military and funding the surveillance state on its own citizens, spying, and considering that the society's gone such a mess, then I think the funds should be reallocated. But like I say, taxpayers don't pay tax, they get tax extracted from them. It's not voluntary what those taxpayers do, so don't pass that off as some kind of virtue. Basically, people in modern day society need to get their hands on money to live. So your wage packet does give you no authority over anybody. In fact, it just reveals your competence if that's your last reason or argument. Well, I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching anyway. I hope that's something to think about. Cheerio.